On tonight's episode of the CHGO Cubs-related podcast, the Cubs have fallen behind the Brewers in the National League Central. The trade deadline looms. What does Jed Hoyer have in store to push the Cubs over the edge? We'll talk about that on this edition of the CHGO Cubs-related podcast. This is the CHGO Cubs-related podcast driven by Toyota. Let's go places and bet 365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. Use code CHGO365 at sign up. Good evening, everybody. My name is Corey. I am joined, as always, by Brendan. We are coming to you on Thursday, July 24th. We are live here at around 8 o'clock Central Time.
Yep.
Hello to all of you in the chat. If you're listening later on your podcast feeds, we appreciate you just the same. If you're in the chat, fire away those comments. We'll be reading. We'll be talking. Brendan, this is the first time, I believe, since maybe the first week of the season, whenever we did an episode, that I will not be leading into our ad breaks by saying, and we'll be back to talk about your first place Chicago Cubs.
Oh, come on.
As they are not in first place.
Come on. Give me a more positive note to start the podcast. Yeah.
The Cubs have one of the best records in Major League Baseball.
There we go. Let me ask you a genuine question now.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Brewers were not playing at this pace right now, would your perspective on this year change at all? Would it be exactly the same if Milwaukee was like hovering above 500?
To be honest with you, and we talked about this a little bit last week, my perspective hasn't changed at all. I'm just extremely annoyed that the Brewers are attempting to mess up this great season the Cubs are having. But the Cubs have been one of the best teams in baseball. They've been really good. We've talked even since the offseason, beginning of the year, about some of the flaws they would have to address, and they will. But yeah, it certainly is changing, I think, the broader view of this season, but not for me. They've been great. And we've said they lead the season series right now with the Brewers. If they can't take care of business in these final 8 games, then that'll be on them. But otherwise, they can't go play baseball for the Seattle Mariners up in Seattle.
Can I provide an alternative viewpoint? I don't know if this makes you feel better or feel worse, but the Dodgers just got swept.
Once again, I have lost Brendan. Can everybody else hear Brendan?
Everyone can hear me just fine, I'm sure. But the Brewers just swept the Dodgers, right? So in one sense, maybe by the end of the year, that could be a good thing. And by late September, we're looking at the end of the season, and we're thinking, man, it was a good thing that Milwaukee actually beat the Dodgers. So if we have to pick a team that's more likely to be competitive, in no diss to Milwaukee whatsoever, I would rather the more projectable team, quote unquote, suffer at this point. And right now, that is indeed Milwaukee. Corey's figuring out his mic. Sometimes we all have technical issues. For him, it's way too often recently, but he'll be back. But just to give a brief overview of what the show is going to be about, Corey was going to get into it. But we're going to talk about Matt Shaw a lot and how the Cubs balance his development versus winning right now over the next couple weeks. We'll talk about a lot of the pitching rumors we've been hearing about: Sandy Alcantara, Cabrera, Keller, Kelly, Joe Ryan, and so on. Cubs are quite active in rumors. We don't know how legit it is, but they are active. And then we'll finish up the discussion should Corey come back and hear us. Corey, do you hear us?
I do.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm sorry about that. I don't really know why that keeps happening.
It's okay. We're all just screaming at you in the chat, and we're dogging you, as you deserve.
So thank you for covering for that.
I gave a fantastic opening intro, but the outlet
yeah, great. I couldn't hear it, so hopefully I pick it up okay. Yeah, we're already seeing the trade market starting. The Arizona Diamondbacks trading Josh Naylor to the Mariners, so signifying that they are going to be sellers. The Suarez rumors are going to kick up. I know our guy Gary Ross in the chat is all over the prospects going in that trade and how it might relate to the Cubs and their system. But yeah, Brendan, I'm glad we are coming on an off day after that Royals series. That was certainly not a great series, very frustrating one, I think, for a lot of reasons. The main one being outside of Matthew Boyd, really, you get kind of teed off on by one of the worst offenses in baseball. I think that last game on Wednesday, particularly frustrating to get out-homered and just outslugged in general by the second worst home run team in baseball. Now, those series happen. That series started with a bullpen game, Ryan Brazier and Ben Brown. Ben Brown, who'd already been sent down, and then finished with Colin Ray, who's done a great job for the Cubs. Don't get that twisted. And for the value that he is signed on, great value. But ideally, as you go forward here, you're not using 2 of every 5 days to either have a bullpen game, continue the Ben Brown experiment, and start Colin Ray. That's not what the plan is, and it's a result of Justin Steele being out, Jameson Taillon being out, etc. But I do think that Royals series is a good one for this podcast, and it does highlight, I think, the biggest need. We said last week, and really as we've been looking ahead to the deadline, that pitching was going to be number one. It was always going to be number one for me. This series solidified it, man. You're starting to see some of these relievers come back down to earth a little bit. Chris Flexen and Drew Pomeranz are no longer like they are no longer the 0 ERA kings, etc.
We'll take 2.
And that's gonna happen. But yeah, I think it also pairs really well, like with the Brewers too, because I think you watch the way that they play, and for as frustrating as it is watching them, they're good at what they do. And this is not the first time we've seen this. It was true in 2018. It's been true in other years as well. They are good at a very particular brand of baseball. Now, they've had some games where they've put up crooked numbers and scored a lot of runs, but they are a run prevention machine. They need a couple opportunities on offense, and they feel like they can win the game. And that highlights an area that the Cubs, I think, would like to be able to match them in terms of bringing in more pitching, as much pitching as you possibly can at this deadline. And that's why it's going to be the focus of this deadline, whether it is top end starters, depth starters, high leverage, big time relievers, or even just swing and miss guys that provide some depth in that bullpen. You will take any and all of it. And it's just a question of how aggressive Jed is going to be for that and what he's able to pull off for an acceptable price.
We've heard the key word used many times: creativity. Jed has said multiple times, for this front office to get what they want, it will take some creativity. Now, how real and true that ends up being is to be seen, given the seller market is becoming more clear now than it was 2 weeks ago. But when I hear creativity, it kind of joggles my mind of intelligent spending in not the best way. And it reminds me that some of these moves, as they go through the days, maybe in combination of following moves of what's to come. So if there's a pitcher to be acquired that does not quite fit like your top shelf, top 3 guy, well, maybe it's a depth move and you have the next 12 hours, the next 24 hours, 48 hours where that top shelf move does come to fruition. For me, I want more than just one guy. I want more, frankly, than just 2 guys. Now, do I want 2 starters? Sure, maybe. Do I want 2 relievers? Sure, maybe. But what I want for sure is eating innings. I know a lot of folks want to talk about who's going to pitch the playoff series. If things continue the way they are, well, you have Shota and you have Boyd, assuming they're going to be healthy. There's no reason to believe their stuff are not 1-2 guys in the playoffs at this point. Getting someone to pitch that 3rd game in a playoff series, at the current moment, it does not appear to be like a viable scenario unless you get someone like Ryan from Minnesota. But that's going to cost an astronomical price. Therefore, the likely path forward is not going to get those guys and maybe get bulk and volume to eat those innings as we go into October, hopefully.
Well, and you mentioned it too. I think part of this exercise is anticipating what can go wrong and anticipating kind of worst case scenarios. So Javier Assad was throwing, had really good results by the reports of people that were there, looked good in the Arizona Complex League out in Arizona, looked good. I believe he was throwing to catcher Miguel Amaya. So all of that is good news. I know they were kind of earmarked for maybe after the deadline, August type returns. Hopefully you get Jameson Taillon back, but especially on those guys, like, what are you counting on them for? They're coming back from injury in the middle of the season. Javier Assad's been working back for, a long time now. And we've talked about this endlessly. Like Cade Horton, what's his runway? What's his leash? What is he going to look like if he continues to go out there every fifth day, racking up those innings and blowing past some of his career highs? Same with Matthew Boyd. Like Matthew Boyd, coming off an injury, he's put work on his arm before, but you just never know with guys like that. And it's also part of the reason that coming out of the break, they let him take that longer break as opposed to moving him up, even though they had the time. They kept him on the regular rotation because they were like, hey, if we can skip a few days, like that gets us an extra few days of freshness toward the end of the year. So these are all things to consider. Shota coming back from an injury, you got to keep an eye on these things. So when you're looking at this deadline, the question becomes, you're in a situation now where Taillon goes down, Steele is out, you've survived, you've gotten through, and in
More
an
than
amazing,
survived.
you've more than survived in an amazing way.
Thrived.
Like you have been throwing either Ben Brown or, a bullpen game and Colin Ray for months now, and you're one of the best teams in baseball.
You have the best run differential in baseball.
Yeah, don't worry about that. The Brewers caught you. The Brewers are on a heater. The Cubs had nothing to do with that, right? But it does represent like, hey, like, do you feel good about going through August and September, critical games? You're going to have, the three here in Milwaukee with Milwaukee. What is that? The end of July? Does that count as August? Whatever.
Sure.
But, those are going to be crucial games down the stretch to lock the division or anything like that. Are you comfortable with your depth? Are you comfortable? And the answer is going to be no. I mean, I'll put it out to the chat, but I read Twitter, right? I know, and I don't feel this way. I don't want Ben Brown starting more games for this team. I was done with that experiment for now the last time when he was sent down. Like Colin Ray has been excellent, but you'd much prefer him in a swingman role or a spot start role. Like maybe he's that guy that gives these guys in the rotation a break. But right now you don't have that depth. Yeah. You don't have those answers unless you're relying on Taillon to come back, and he was inconsistent as it was, and Javier Assad to come back, who even last year, his FIP numbers didn't always agree with his ERA, and he wasn't a guy that was usually going more than 4 or 5 innings at a time. So like you said, if the high impact guys are available and Jed wants to take a swing, I'm all for it. You guys know, like, I'm not sitting here hugging any prospects. I'm driving people to the airport if it's helping us win a title. But at the same time, maybe those guys aren't available, but depth matters. Even if it's not the sexiest name, getting that depth and getting reliable guys that you can give that ball to every 5th day, they can give you a quality start, eat some innings, take some of the load off of the bullpen. It's going to be crucial. And right now, as you saw, especially highlighted in that Royals series, you're running on fumes in that regard. You've gotten to this point, but the gas is kind of out of the tank for some of these guys.
Right. And, you see names across the board, even names we didn't mention, including like Merrill Kelly from Arizona. Arizona is now selling. They just traded Josh Naylor, as you said. Edwin Suarez is on the market, right? Those guys can start playoff games. Absolutely. The ace type, mid-twos ERA, the no nonsense guys that get 8, 9, 10 strikeouts every game to every 2 to 3 games, those are going to be difficult to acquire. So you have to proceed entering a playoff series, throwing Boyd, throwing Shota, hopefully acquiring your 3, quote unquote, number 3 in the playoffs. But if that doesn't happen and the price is too exorbitant, then you have to somehow have that depth and make do with what you got. That is still a viable option. Is it my preferred option? No, but it can work.
All right, we're going to hit our first ad break here. We're going to talk about Matt Shaw, the adjustments he's made, the week that he's had, the post All-Star break he's had, and of course, how that ties into the deadline. We're going to talk about some of these specific pitching rumors. But to your point, just quickly before we hit that ad break, it does pair with, like, when you watch the Brewers. I thought of it specifically when they took Miz out after 3 2/3 in that start in Seattle. He had thrown a decent number of pitches, but when they make a move like that, they're thrilled that they got those 3 2/3 innings. They're not looking at that start thinking, oh man, we have to cover the 4th through 9th inning now. They're like, okay, great. We got 3 2/3. Here's the plan for how we're going to get the rest of these outs. Right now, like you felt it in that KC series a little bit, it's not really the way Craig Counsell can look at things. He's kind of thinking, shoot, if I got to take this guy out in the 4th inning, like who's coming in now? You want to build that depth so that you're able to cover those things, especially in the playoffs, not necessarily the regular season.
The depth is going to be built. I don't think Craig Counsell is going like, oh no, we're screwed. Like they're going to make trades.
No. I'm saying obvious. Like in the game right now.
Of course. But I do believe like they will make those trades to bolster.
I agree as well. Yeah. Okay. At a minimum, they will address the depth.
No doubt.
We'll see how much higher the ceiling goes.
Let's hit our first ad break.
We'll be back. Let's hit our first ad break.
This summer, elevate everything with Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, Illinois' favorite one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs. Whether you're a first-timer or a seasoned pro, Sunnyside welcomes everyone with judgment-free shopping and expert guidance. With over 100 strains on a carefully curated menu, plus trusted brands like Good News, Mindy's, Cresco, and Florical. There's something for every vibe. You can even shop online. You can pick it up in store. It is that easy. Find them in Wrigleyville, River North, and suburbs like Champaign and South Beloit. And if you're ready to stock up, visit sunnyside.shop and get 50% off your first 3 online orders with promo code HICHGO at checkout. Existing users use code CHGO50 for 50% off one Cresco Labs item. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 and over or Illinois medical card holders, and exclusions do apply. Summer travel season is here, and if you're like me, you're probably overpacking again and again. Ditch the bulky bottles and pack smarter with Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar. It's shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant all in one sleek bar. It saves space, simplifies your whole hygiene routine, and keeps you fresh from head to toe. And speaking of staying fresh, Mando's sweat control deodorant stick has changed the game. One thing that seriously boosted my confidence, Mando's whole body deodorant. It's safe to use everywhere. Yes, everywhere. Pits, feet, thighs, cracks, and it's made by a doctor who realized most BO was being misdiagnosed. Mando tackles odor at the source. You can choose from scents like bourbon leather, cloverwoods, and Mount Fuji, and stay fresher, longer, clinically proven to control odor better than soap alone. The Grundle score after a shower, 5 out of 10, but with Mando, 0 out of 10.
All right, Brendan, back with you. Let's talk about some of these options. Now, look, I'm not a big trade proposal guy. I'm not a big like, oh, if it, you wanted Suarez, you have to give this prospect and this prospect. And I'm sure of that. I'm not on the phone with Jed Hoyer. I'm not on the phone with the other general managers. So I don't like to claim that anything is an absolute answer. But there's a lot of smoke on some of these guys. It's very clear. You're hearing Suarez a lot, but there are going to be a decent number of suitors for his services. Obviously, he's hitting 2 home runs every game, basically. It feels like I keep getting texts from like Brendan, Suarez again. And I'm like, is that a repeat or like what's happening right now?
Sometimes it is, but not that time.
They must be feeling great. I mean, obviously, they'd probably prefer to be in a playoff race, but they're like, hey, at least he's driving his price up to the moon. You're hearing Merrill Kelly, Mitch Keller, Edward Cabrera from Miami, Sandy Alcantara from Miami, Joe Ryan from Minnesota. You're hearing Dylan Cease, even in some rumors earlier.
You've been hearing Dylan Cease since the offseason. This is a weird situation.
So there are a lot of names out there, a lot of stuff going on. What is real? What is fake? I don't know. But I do want to talk about some of these options. I have felt that if the Cubs were going to make a move, I would like them to pursue someone that is a sure bet, in the sense that some of these things have been projects, right? Zach Gallen from Arizona, another one. We know the potential that some of these guys have. But at the same time, do the Cubs have can they take that risk? Can they take the risk that they are going to, Chris Bubich from Kansas City as well, who was just here, another option that we've heard in some of the rumors. Can they take the risk that they're looking at someone, Tommy Hotovy and his guys, and saying, here's what we're going to tweak. He's going to throw his sinker more, or we're going to change his arm slot, or we're going to tinker with the sequencing. Can they take that risk, or do they need to get someone, even if it's not as high of a ceiling, who can just slot into this rotation, pitch every fifth day? You know they're going to get there to the end. They're going to rack up, not just with the Cubs, but close to 30 starts, be solid for you, and just keep the line moving. To me, I would prefer the latter. If you can take a swing and the price isn't crazy and it's, not prospects that anybody's losing sleep over, then great. But on Sandy in particular, and I know you have some information on Alcantara because that's been a big topic. I don't know if I'm comfortable with taking the risk. He's got to come over and be successful. And I just think this is one of those things, to your earlier point, if we were talking about the 2016 Cubs who won the World Series.
Correct.
On this exact podcast at that time, first of all, everyone is freaking out because of that All-Star break stretch. And you and I are telling everybody to calm down. The team is really good. So not kind of similar, honestly.
10 years ago.
In some ways.
That's gray hair.
But that team had what at the All-Star break? A 10-game lead in the division? Might have even been higher. Something like that. Like, they could afford to take that swing. They didn't need starting pitching depth. But they could take that risk because they were floating along. If they got a guy, if it took until the last day of September for them to figure out a pitcher that they had traded for, great. Now we have a playoff weapon, right? Who cares what he was doing up until that? You had such a large lead. Cubs right now don't have that luxury. They have to be winning games tomorrow. Every day. You can't
be trading just for October.
Right. You don't have that luxury. Maybe you make moves with that in mind in addition to some of the other moves you're making. But you have got to address what is going on in the 4 and 5 spots in your rotation. And again, that's not disrespect to Colin Ray. It's been good. But how much are you going to rely on that? How much are you expecting out of that for the next few months? So I'm fine with not as big of names, but more reliable. And I think we talked about this. Merrill Kelly, to me, seems like a really nice medium for what the Cubs are looking for. And they could do more in addition to that. But if their only move were someone like Alcantara, or even Gallen for that matter, I'm going to be worried about it.
There are some fans who do prefer the higher ceiling, where they look at Zach Gallen, they look at Sandy Alcantara, and they think, okay, well, listen, he won the Cy Young not just 2 years ago. Zach Gallen was in the conversation last year. They need a bona fide ace potential guy. They look at, Kelly. Oh, the guy's in his late 30s. He doesn't look like the guy.
Sure.
They look at Mitch Keller from Pittsburgh. Oh, his K per nine's under 7. This guy's going to be the number 1, number 2 starter. You're not going to get that either, I think, in terms of getting that top echelon guy where you can get the number 1, number 2 slot and that depth. You kind of have to pick a lane. Now, if you can get all of them, great. You are $25 million underneath that luxury tax. Maybe there is a world where you can get Alcantara and 1 to 2 other starting pitchers as depth pieces in addition. Maybe there's a world for that. I don't believe that's going to happen. So the question I want to pose to you before we get into more, I think on Alcantara, is, are you okay going into October? Just forget the names because everyone's getting hung up on the names. I get There's 12 guys out there. Are you okay going into October with absolutely slotting in Boyd and Shota? Not even playing for the possibility that Boyd may not be his current best self in 2 months? Or do you want to plan? You said worst case scenario.
Sure.
Do you want to plan for the worst case scenario being Boyd not having the stamina to get into October?
I mean, I think given the situation, you have to count on that. If Boyd is performing like this and he can't make it to the
How
end.
reliable is that though? Right? You're
I
talking
have
about
no
worst
idea.
case scenarios.
We don't know. We don't
Hang on
know.
me. That's
Yeah,
why people look at Alcantara and Gallon because they don't know, right? They have different
sure.
opinions on this, right?
Well, I mean, the counter to that, and I think our guy Niran in the chat said this, like, Sandy's a guy that's had Tommy John. Like, can he last? Will he get there? And then you look at some of these other names, like Edwin Cabrera, very exciting young player, and that would be a move that you're making not just for this year. He would be a guy that you'd have under cost control until 2029. He would bring the velo, but he dealt with a little bit of an injury scare, obviously came back from it. The reports seem that he's fine. All indications are that, that was not a serious thing. At the same time, he's at 88 innings on the season. His career high in the majors is 99. So is he pumping 99 or whatever come October if you trade for him now? I don't know. Like all of these guys are going to come with different, some of them are rentals. Some of them would be guys you're slotting in and hoping they're moving up to the top of your rotation for the next several years. As you said, like Merrill Kelly, a guy that's older, Mitch Keller on Pittsburgh. I know that's a name that's been tossed out there. He's under contract until 2028. 29 years old. So like all of these guys, you're weighing some different things. And again, it sort of depends like what you want to shoot for. Do you want to shoot for like kind of a sure thing in terms of just like this guy's going to go out there and pitch for you and be solid enough? Do you want to shoot for the moon and, go for someone like Edward Cabrera? The price is going to be a lot higher, but you'd be shoring up potentially your rotation with a big time velo arm for the next several years. But he's going to pass his innings limit, or not limit, but innings threshold for his career in 2 starts. And
He had an elbow injury like 6
what's the
weeks ago.
risk there? Yeah.
Right.
So again,
Like him, yeah.
my sensibility in a different year, it would be to go for the higher ceiling, take the shot, try to figure one of these guys out and end up with a guy that looks like his Cy Young form from a few years ago. But I just don't know that the Cubs have that luxury. I think things are just a little too precarious that I would be focusing on building the depth and getting solid options. Now, that being said, like you look at someone like Merrill Kelly, right? Like if he's the solid option or if Mitch Keller is the solid option, everybody's a gamble. Pitching is a gamble.
Do you have a preference? Just this brief preference on one or two guys? For me, it would be Mitch Keller. I won't get into it in this episode or for the next 30 minutes, but for me, it's Mitch Keller. 2 reasons. Number one, he's under a friendly contract for the next 3 years. Number two, having success this year. And number three, you look at just like the pitch stuff, diverse repertoire from a pitch run value, 95th percentile. To me, he checks the future boxes and he checks the immediate boxes.
Yeah, I'm good with it. You're going to have to pay a little more probably because you're in division and because he's under contract for a little bit. The only like pushback I would have with that is he's on what, like a $15.4 million contract. Yeah. So the only thing I would say about that is then you kind of have a decent amount of money tied up in your rotation for 2026 with like, you have a few standouts, but Boyd is going to be what, 35? Shota coming back, he's going to be 32 or 33, I believe. Steele working from his second straight season of dealing with a pretty serious injury. Like then you're throwing Keller in there, and he's good. He's been a good pitcher, but with like Tyone and some of this stuff, like I don't know, you'd have a decent amount of your rotation or a decent amount of money that is tied up in, I don't know, like I don't want to say meh guys, but like the ceiling is somewhat limited. It's a lot of money on that rotation with only a handful of guys that, really have that ceiling to reach that kind of like Cy Young level. So that would be my concern there. But that's also a really interesting part of this conversation, Brendan, that what are you prioritizing? Because are you prioritizing 2025 and then kind of dealing with the rest later? Obviously, Jed has to think about it all at once. But in theory, like you can say, listen, like we'll have these on the books. We're going to figure it out. We can make trades in the off season. Like we can clear some of this money. We know we can. but we need to win a championship now. We need to help this team in 2025 now. And at least getting guys with, controllable contracts gives you something to work with, right? Versus having to deal with all of this in the offseason. It's a lot to weigh. So I think everybody's going to have their different preferences, and it's going to be interesting when they ultimately pull the trigger on some of these moves to see which part of the fan base is like, hell yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. And the other part of the fan base is, I wanted this guy, or I don't like that this guy had. It's going to be hard to please everybody. That's not Jed's job. Jed's job is to win.
That's right. Let's take our second ad break. Come back
around.
Our
second ad break here. We'll finish talking about some of these pitchers. We're going to talk about Matt Shaw, and we'll keep talking about the trade deadline, and we will be back in a moment.
Hey, Cubs fans, summer starts here, and if you're ready to upgrade your ride, Toyota's 2025 lineup is ready to roll. Check out the RAV4 for everyday versatility, the Grand Highlander for road trip comfort, or the Corolla if you're all about efficiency. If you need something tougher, the Tacoma has your back, or you can go sleek with the performance-packed Camry. And whether it's a family trip or a weekend getaway, Toyota has a perfect vehicle and amazing deals to match. Visit Toyota.com or your local Chicagoland Toyota dealer today. Toyota, let's go places. And if you're looking to upgrade your fandom, become a CHGO diehard today. Score exclusive content, a free tee, discounts, and access to our Discord lounge where we talk Chicago sports 24/7. Join the crew at allchgo.com and level up your love for the game. And just like your favorite team needs that home field advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and that's where Empire Today comes in. Forget the big box store chaos. You're walking through miles of aisles, hauling flooring into your car, and trying to find someone who maybe just helped with sinks yesterday and is stocking light bulbs tomorrow. It's overwhelming. Trust me. I once tried a do-it-yourself flooring job. Let's just say my tape measure and I are no longer on speaking terms. Empire Today is the opposite. Flooring is what they do every single day. Their experts bring the showroom to your home so you can see how everything looks with your lighting, your furniture, your vibe. There's no guesswork, no mismatches. They take precise measurements. They answer all your questions and offer clear upfront pricing. No surprises. The best part, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. There is no long waits, just beautiful floors built fast. Schedule your free in-home estimate today. CHGO listeners get a $350 discount with promo code CHGO. That's right, $350 off. Visit empiretoday.com/CHGO for full details. Empire Today, flooring made easy.
All right, and speaking of being a CHGO diehard, we have an event coming up on August 15th when the Cubs take on the Pirates. It is CHGO's first 120 club on the rooftop.
Look at that.
Pre-game at Murphy's Bleachers at 10 a.m., 120 start against the Pirates. That is for diehards only. So as Brendan mentioned, visit allchgo.com to look into info on signing up. 120 Club on the roof, August 15th against the Pirates. All right, Brendan, back with you. And I agree with, again, our good friend Niren in the chat here. Like, the pitching staff with Steele may be different, obviously. But Niren saying, they weren't built for 162. And, older guys in the pen, some unproven starting pitchers. And where I, like that point is even in the offseason, like with thinking they were going to have a healthy Steele, like we always felt like this pitching staff was going to need more depth. And you've been able to get, and turn some of these guys into really good bullpen pieces. Like Brad Keller has been excellent for you. Daniel Palencia has been excellent for you. And I think like really changed the conversation about what the Cubs were even going to do at this deadline as far as relievers were concerned, or like what exactly that need was. But you always felt like they were going to need more depth. We've been saying that they were going to need another playoff level starter, even back in spring training. I felt that way. And now I didn't know Matthew Boyd was going to put himself in contention for the National League Cy Young, but I also didn't know Justin Steele was going to be done for the season. Shota was going to deal with injury, etc. So I do agree with that in the sense that we always knew that they were going to have to make these additions. I felt that frustration boil over on social media in that Royals series. Like, why isn't Jed acting with urgency? They need to make a trade. And it's like, guys, this was always going to be the case. You'll recall me saying on this show that this season is split into multiple parts. The first part was surviving to the deadline to where they could supplement this team. And as we've alluded to, not only did they survive, but they've been one of the best teams in baseball. It is genuinely not their fault that the best team in baseball right now is in their own stinking division. It's a bummer. It stinks. It is what it is. But this was always sort of going to be the case. And we're right there. We're a week away. They will make moves. They will get better. And then we'll transition to the second part of the season, which is finishing the job and getting into the playoffs. The third part is the crazy one, and that's winning the championship, but one step at a time.
Let's break this down very simply, because I said before, so many names in the trade market. We got wildly different expectations. People are saying Alcantara is not going to get to the playoffs anyway. Like, absolutely, possibly a huge factor is his recent Tommy John. No doubt about that. Look at what the Cubs are currently projected. Right now, by Fangraphs, 91 wins overall the rest of the year. Okay. Milwaukee projected 92 wins. Milwaukee's right there. They are, in fact, projected basically as a coin flip with the Cubs. The reason for that is their pitching projections stable, super stable. Let's talk about the Cubs pitching projections. Cade Horton, again, this is for them to win 91 games by the Fangraphs projections. They slot in Cade Horton to 45 more innings. That would mean he slots almost 135 total innings in his first full year. Seems like unlikely, although possible, but just unlikely. Jameson Taillon has a significant calf injury, slotted in for 37 more innings. We don't know the degree to which he can come back and be his full self because of that injury. Ben Brown, you said, I don't want to see Ben Brown again. He's slotted in for 20 innings by Fangraphs. Javi Assad has not pitched one inning this year. That's 16 innings for Javi Assad. So I'm tallying this up. I got 45 plus 37 plus 19 plus 15 plus 10. We're talking about over 125 innings. What's the likelihood those guys can give you that number of innings? And then you start layering on, well, Matthew Boyd, right, has the age. Shota, he seems to be fine, so I'm not factoring him in. But then you have Colin Ray at 58 innings, right? They will need to make multiple moves. And it's not like, oh, well, the Cubs are playing just fine and Milwaukee's on a heater. No, like the Cubs need to shore up this pitching depth. Looking at 91 wins with Cade Horton slotted in for 45 and James Taillon slotting at 37 and Ben Brown at 20, to me, that seems like a less than ideal way going through August and September. So it's not just Alcantara for like the playoffs. No, it's getting multiple guys. And then as a luxury, you get someone like Alcantara. As a luxury, you get someone like Gallen. You need to go trade right now for 50 more innings.
Yeah.
You need to trade for another guy for another 35 more innings. Then your bullpen. You need to acquire a high volume of pitchers to withstand these volatile projections I'm looking at.
Yeah, 100%. And I know you had some graphs on one Sandy Alcantara, and I see it in the chat. It's not my preference, but it's a name that's getting thrown around. I know they were talking about it on the Score a lot this morning, incorrectly referring to him as, a big swing and miss pitcher, which is just not true. Even when he won the Cy Young, that really was not his game. But it's stuff you're hearing. And I think he's an interesting representation because it's sort of similar with Galen. They're not exactly the same pitcher, but it's similar in the sense of like, what would be the logic in terms of taking on this risk? Because there are a lot of people pushing for some of those moves.
He's a Cy Young guy.
Sure, but then you also have the pushback of like, why would they acquire a guy with a 6.5 ERA, or in Gallen's case, a 5.5 ERA?
Money,
right? Yeah. So talk us through a little bit about what you would even see, and even like hypothetically, if they make a move for a guy that they would have to tweak, what would that look like? And is that realistic to even do in a 2-month span?
So that's a great question. I was curious about it. So I wanted to see, what is Sandy Alcantara doing differently this year compared to 2 seasons ago before the injury, and more aptly when he was at his best? The answer is his four-seam fastball has been hit extremely hard. Now, this is a very complicated graph here. The point that we're making on the left is that his sinker, which he uses most of his pitches, looks very similar now than it did before Tommy John. So you can check that box off. The sinker value's there. He has one of the better sinker value pitches in the league, and there's really no difference in the shape of the pitch. That's important. So remember, if you're an optimist for Sandy Alcantara, I'm unbiased, by the way. I'm not saying the Cubs should get him or not, but if you're an optimist for him, your argument's going to center on, well, the sinker looks good, and that's his dominant pitch. So there's a base there. Now, if you're a pessimist for Sandy Alcantara, you're going to shift your eyes to the right. And on the right, you're going to see, oh my God, his four-seam fastball has a -7 run value. One of the worst four-seam fastballs in the league. Don't you need a four-seam fastball to be successful? And that shape has looked wildly different. Now, wildly might be more of a dramatic term, but has looked significantly different this year than before Tommy John. You can see that in the red pitches. Each one of these pitches is his red fastball. You see two different populations here. So whatever it is, whether it be spin rate or shape or release point, everything is different from the four-seam perspective. Then the question is, well, why is that happening? His release point has shifted. Is this intentional? I have no idea. Is he shifting differently on the rubber? I did look. He's not shifting on the rubber, so this is a mechanical thing. His arm angle is lower. It's for some reason lower. I don't know what to make of that, but it's coinciding with a change in the four-seam shape. Surprisingly, it's not coinciding with a change in the sinker. I do not know what to make of that. You got a mechanical change, but the sinker looks the same. Those are for you optimists out there on Sandy Alcantara. For me, I look at this and I think I need certainty. So I don't know how long something like this needs time to address. Could it be a simple, 2-week multiple bullpen session with Tommy Hotovy to rectify some of these issues? Is the release point even truly the cause for this? I don't even know. But for the Cubs to proceed forward, this seems like a big ask. Trying to get, a guy who previously had success not back to his, current form. I don't feel like that's going to be a priority as the pecking order type moves. I believe it would be a luxury move, but it would not be the primary move for the Cubs to get. But if you're an optimist, you're going to center in on that sinker.
Yeah. And I think too, the other thing, it's all about price, right? Like, I think earlier in the year, we were hearing that the Marlins really weren't budging on the price despite his struggles. Like, they were kind of treating him as a former Cy Young winner. Like, that's the price we're going to ask for. He's still under contract. I think he has a team option or a club option in 2027. So that all factors in here. And but just as an example, and not that, just for a starter versus a reliever, that swing and miss is necessarily the be all end all thing. But when you're looking at these Marlins pitchers, like Edward Cabrera throughout his career, 9.5, 9.4, 10.6, 10, 9.4 K per nine throughout his career. Sandy in the last few years, 2025, 6.6, 23, 7.3, 8.1, 8.8. If you're going for a big, we're taking the swing, we want that high ceiling guy to come over and start blowing people away in our rotation, one of the Marlins pitchers is the better answer, and it's Edward Cabrera. Price is going to be high. It's going to make a lot of people really uncomfortable. But
that's the argument for someone like Sandy Alcantara, because the price is high. You're reading off the K per nine numbers. This is we can't look at the output stats, because if they go and try to acquire someone like this, it's under the perception that they can tweak and mold some of those pitch shapes.
Sure.
That way, the K per nines that you're reading off under 8s, they become in the 9s and 10s at a substantially cheaper rate than what it would cost to get someone like Cabrera.
Sure. That's that. I have a lot of faith in Tommy Hotovy, but that whole thing still scares me. Nothing like that is guaranteed. It still scares me. We have to hit our third and final ad break here in a moment, but I do want to, at least just note, we did also see from Bruce Levine earlier on Thursday that the Cubs are working hard on acquiring bullpen pitchers. He mentioned Baltimore's Sir Anthony Dominguez and Tampa's Pete Fairbanks. I've seen some reports out there on Twitter like not really buying those names, or just not necessarily like hearing the same as Bruce. You never know. This is that time of year. A lot of people are throwing stuff out there. A lot of people are throwing stuff out there. But the thing I did take away from that is that they are aggressively looking at bullpen help and not necessarily low value bullpen help. Like they are going to try to add to this bullpen, and they are going to try to give Daniel Palencia and Brad Keller and Caleb Thielbar. Is that like the real trust tree right now? Am I leaving anybody out
No,
unfairly?
that
That
seems
feels
about
like the
it.
real trust tree to me. Ryan Brazier's been pretty solid
Well, he's
for
a
the most
starting
part.
pitcher now.
He's a solid starting pitcher. John Birdie
That's
in the
right, John
bullpen.
Birdie.
Yeah. So again, on those specific names, we can dig into some relievers if we have time, but just hearing like we're focused on starting pitching, and obviously coming out of that Kansas City series, it feels like, okay, really highlighted, like, let's speed this up. Let's see if we can fix this quickly. But it does sound like they are going to aggressively pursue some bullpen help as well, and they
Can I
need it.
can I be honest with you? I'm reading off like my optimism may have just gone down a little bit. I'm just reading off some of these projections. I'm looking at Milwaukee's projection and seeing the pitching quality they have, and seeing like 92 wins for them and 91 wins for the Cubs.
Yeah.
And seeing there, oh, it relies on Kate Horton throwing 135 innings, it relies on Colin Ray. But I'm like, oh my God, maybe this is more severe than I
They
think.
got to add some stability, dude. Listen, we got to hit our break, but like you
It's
watch
kind
those
of freaking me
Milwaukee
out. I'm not
games,
gonna lie.
listen, Milwaukee is very good at the brand of baseball that they play. This is not going to be easy, and I think, some folks are going to have to strap in a little bit. Like
Is this
when
worse than you
Milwaukee
think?
when Milwaukee caught them, I think it caught a lot of people off guard, and it really threw people off. Like this can be a dogfight. I said this last week. Like Milwaukee they have not won a damn thing for as much as they've been on top of the division. They don't have they have no flags to fly to show for it. They're not going to roll over and die and let you take this division, especially if you took their manager. They're really good at the brand of baseball they play. They got a bunch of starting pitchers that pump
Oh my God, we
absolute
need so much
gas,
pitching.
and you're going to have to beat them
We
in
need
these
so
8
much pitching.
games.
We need pitching, man.
The Cubs have got to add depth. We knew
Oh
this.
my,
Jed's
like
got some work to do, but at the same time, he's got one of the best teams in Major League Baseball and a huge opportunity to take it to another level. He's going to have to cook. Let's hit our third ad break here. We'll be back to keep talking about it.
big box dealerships can be overwhelming, but Array, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, the expert team is focused on you. They are here to help every step of the way, and they prioritize affordability, so you know you're getting a great deal on the vehicle that you need. Whether it's a family SUV, a tough truck, or something fuel efficient, Ray CDJR has one of the biggest inventories in the Chicagoland area. Don't forget, right now is the employee pricing plus sales event with huge savings on the 2025 Ram 1500 and more. Check out raycdjr.com or stop by on Route 12 in Fox Lake to start your car shopping journey today. If you ever tried grabbing tickets last minute for a game, I have some good news. Game Time makes it stupid easy. It's a few taps and boom, low prices, awesome seats, and no stress. I have friends who go to games last second. They always ask me, hey, you're doing a podcast. Like, how do you get your tickets? I tell them Game Time. I don't like looking through different, apps, different websites. I just want to know wherever I go, that's going to be the best deal. And I want it easy. I don't have time to scroll through all these different websites. One of the best parts too about Game Time, the prices actually drop closer as it gets to first pitch. You can score killer deals and use the extra cash for merch, food, or even to bring a few more friends. I love that seat view feature as well. You can actually see where you'll sit before you buy. And the best part, no surprise fees. What you see is the price you pay. That always annoys the hell out of me. I want to know exactly what I'm paying for. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of CHGO, and there's even a 10% off exclusive zone deal for the August 3rd game versus the Orioles, maybe perhaps before they make a trade. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Game Time, last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right, so finishing that thought, and then I want to talk about Matt Shaw a little bit, especially as it ties into the deadline, Eugenio Suarez, other moves. I know we hear like the name, Castro from Minnesota a good bit. But just finishing the thought, like, yeah, man, like Milwaukee's good. Like, as much as it pains me to say that, and I certainly don't think they're going to win 11 of every 12 games that they play. But they're good at their brand of baseball. They know how to prevent runs. They play excellent defense, and they find these pitchers, man. I mean, they turned Quinn Priester into a top of the rotation arm right now. Like, they clearly know what they're doing. They have figured something out in that organization, and you can't deny it. And it's going to be up to the Cubs to take care of business in those 8 games. It may not directly come down to that, but if one of those teams wins 6, 7 of those games, Brendan, like, it really genuinely may come down to those series. So the Cubs are going to have to put up or shut up. And like I said, it's not going to be easy. And that's the task that Jed has. He doesn't have a contract. Kyle Tucker doesn't have a contract. You've been one of the best teams in baseball, and you have got to use the trade deadline to prevent the Milwaukee Brewers from stealing this division from you, because they are not just going to sit idly by and let you sneak on by. Like, they're not going to do that. Like, they're a good team. They're good at what they do. They know who they are, and they know how to execute it. I hate watch every game they play, hoping they lose and hoping the Cubs get that half game in the standings. I feel very familiar with them. It's very annoying, but they know what they're doing.
I mean, I look at their rest of season pitching projections. I'm looking at it. I'm like, yeah, like, makes sense, feasible. Freddie Peralta.
Well, now listen, I will say too, you've got Woodruff coming back from injury. Like, Mizrowski is obviously going to be on some sort of innings limit. He already is. Like, what that looks like as you go forward, and can they continue to get that production out of guys? Like they've gotten out of Patrick and Quinn Priester, etc. But again, like, I've watched so many of these games, and they execute the same formula. They get one chance, they push those runs across, and then here comes, they've got, I think, Uribe. They bring in McGill, and they shut the game down. We've watched this movie before. The cast is a little different, but we have seen this movie before, brother. So the Cubs are going to have to take it to them, and they're going to have to be aggressive at this deadline. I think that answers the question that some people have asked, like, what's your sensibility at the deadline? Are you pushing everything in? Like, you don't have to mortgage the entire farm and set yourself back like years and years with all the progress that you've made there. But I'm going for it if I'm Jed Hoyer. Anybody is on the table. No price is too big if it's a player that he feels is helping this team win this division, get in the playoffs, and try to win a World Series. Yeah. Those chances are precious. Even if the team in your division, again, the Cubs are 3-2 against the Brewers, so they own that tiebreak right now. Like, chances where your team is one of the best in baseball, regardless of how your division is doing, they are very, very precious. They don't come along that often, right? You have got to take advantage of them. You have got to try to push in there. And as you and I have talked, that bye is critical. Like, being one of those top seeds is critical. But there are some years, man, where, like, such is your luck. Like, ask the 2015 Pittsburgh Pirates how they felt about winning 98 games and having to try to hit Jake Arrieta in a 1-game playoff for their season. I don't think they felt great about it. Then, after you talk to the 2015 Pittsburgh Pirates, talk to the 2015 St. Louis Cardinals and ask them how they felt about being the number 1 seed and being rewarded with the Chicago Cubs coming for a 5-game series. I don't think either of those teams felt great about it, but there's nothing they could do. They had great seasons. It's not their fault that the schedule plays out that way, the division, the playoffs. It just is what it is, man. You've got to be better than them. That's the only thing you can do. As easy as it is for me to sit here and say, you've got to make moves and play better than them.
It's an easy thing for you to say, absolutely. And you mentioned, like, Jacob Mizrowski, right? So his projection, this is where I'm starting to spiral. I'm going to be fully honest with you. I'm starting to spiral a little bit.
Let's talk about Matt Shaw.
But just give me 5 minutes. Let me spiral on air. Let me spiral on air for you, okay? But, like, I'm looking at and again, I hate projections. They're wrong a lot. There's a huge degree of variance in it, but it provides a baseline of expectations, okay? So Jacob Mizrowski, he's projected at a 4.4 ERA, just barely league average production, below league average production, and they're still projected as a 92 win team. That's starting to freak me out. Then I'm looking at this. I'm like, all right, well, who the hell else do they have projections for? Freddie Peralta, 3.8 ERA in 63 innings. That's like feasible. In fact, Peralta's looking really good. Like you can see him pitching better than that. I'm looking at my favorite guy, Jose Quintana, 4.3 ERA. Like, yeah, like he's probably on pace to hit that mark. Brandon Woodruff is that unknown. You're right about that. So he's a 3.6 ERA projection, 59 more innings. That's an unknown. But the pitching staff, as it currently is on projections, it's not wildly crazy to look at this. The reason for some of these like tight projections for Milwaukee is the positional side. And it's not even the offense. I'm wondering what the hell is going on here with some of these projections. It's their defense, dude. Bryce Terang, Jackson Churio, Christian Yelich, Caleb Durbin, Joey Ortiz. Like they're not going to blow you offensively out of the water, but they're playing tight defense. So you're bringing up the style of Milwaukee's play. Is you pitch well, you find a way, you sequence the bullpen optimally, and you play tight, good defense, and you run the bases well. It's being reflected in these projections here as one game better than the Cubs. Now, to be fair, to play devil's advocate, a lot of these projections for the Cubs, they're not considering the most heavily weighted recency effects. Number one is Seiya's power emergence. Number two is PCA superstardom. It's not considering those two guys contributing with maybe getting in someone like Eugenio Suarez to really round out that lineup. It's not considering Michael Busch is perhaps better than what we see in projections. And for the entire year, we've heard Jed discuss they need to outperform their projections. That's still somewhat true, but it's more likely now than it was back in April.
Yeah.
And then you make a few more pitching acquisitions, and then your picture does look better than Milwaukee. But
100%.
you have to hit those trade deals in the pitching side.
I mean, it's just good context to have. Like it affects where the Cubs are. Like you said, sort of to start this podcast, if you're in a year where everybody else in the division is okay, whatever, the Cubs are running away with this. Like this is a totally different trade deadline.
I was in a different mindset an hour ago. I'm way more negative now.
Let's talk about. I'm not negative at all. They're going to.
I'm not negative. I just didn't realize it was like that for Milwaukee.
I do want to talk about Matt Shaw though, and Matt Shaw is going to be. We're going to take the temp on Matt Shaw. And that is our segment brought to you by your trusted local experts at Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. So it is quite the stretch for Matt Shaw. And I got to tell you, I was at the game the other night with the wonderful Greg Zumak, who does great prospect work, great draft work on the Chicago Cubs.
Co-host of the Cubs on Deck podcast.
Yes, Ivy Futures, I believe, on social media. And we were talking about, like, how often do you see a guy sit out a series, like sat out in New York so that he could work with the hitting coaches, tweak his swing, work on stuff, come back, and, like, immediately see those results?
PCA.
It was a fascinating thing to see a few home runs, some pull home runs, and overall just the swing looking better, the exit velo looking better, a whole lot looking better. And, such a contrast, right? His last 15 games, a 229 OBP and a 422 OPS. His last 7 games, though, a 450 OBP and a 900 OPS. Hey. So it was a really good stretch for Matt Shaw. And I know you wanted to break down some of his swing stuff. And I think before we do that, we're going to break down the swing stuff in overtime, which we're going to hit in about a minute here. Obviously, we're running long. We got a week till the trade deadline. Like, there's no way. If you've been listening to Brendan and I for any amount of time, we can't handle that.
I feel bad for Sarah. I really do. I'm sorry, Sarah. This is not my fault. This is Corey's fault. You can scream that for this podcast.
But we want to give, the people their money's worth. The thing with Shaw is, how are you weighing what you're doing at the deadline? Like, I felt like before this stretch, there's no question you have to go out and not just find like someone to mix in at third base. You have to find your starting third baseman. Like, I don't know if I don't feel that way anymore, but I'm at least intrigued. And you'd certainly like to give your 23-year-old top draft pick, like big time prospect, that opportunity. But it's interesting to think about. So, as I said, we're going to go to overtime here. If you're watching on fast channels, please switch feeds. Obviously, still rolling here. Audio doesn't quit. So with Matt Shaw, I know you were looking at some of the specific tweaks that he came back and showed that led to him hitting some of those home runs. I was especially bummed. Obviously, I wanted them to win that first game against the Royals anyway. But what a moment that would have been. He put them up 4-1 in that game. I know you highlighted it, but the veterans, Dansby Swanson, Justin Turner, greeting him at home plate, hugging him, that whole thing. I heard it. I'm ignoring it. It just felt like such a big moment. Not only had he come back and was showing this, but to give them a lead in that game and have that moment, it's obviously a bummer that game gets away from them. But what are the tweaks that Shaw made? And then let's just tie it all in to, the big rumor has been Eugenio Suarez. You can hear Pat Hughes saying it every time you read the articles and you see him. What does Jed do here? Yeah. What does he make of such a small sample from Matt Shaw? And how much if he's thinking about it, how much can he gamble on it sticking?
I'm going to pose a question after we talk about Shaw that's in relation to how the Cubs proceed with their current prospect worth or capital, if you will. I hate saying that word, but you know what it is. What Shaw has made changes to is specifically to recently that pre-pitch batting stance. And just to give more credit, this is snapshots from the MLB broadcast, but this is not just one change. This has been changes over the course of multiple months. On the left, you see March 18th. This is the first game in Japan against the Dodgers. Obviously, several traits stand out. Number one, front toe inversion. Number two, a closed batting stance. If you don't know what closed batting stance means, that front foot is closer to home plate than that back foot. Keep looking, go all the way up now to around the belt. You see that starting bat depth is closer to his abdomen and his shoulder, and his head position. You see that jaw protector is almost covering the entire side of his face from the camera view angle. Now, I know it's a different camera view, but they are frankly both offset. Wrigley's quite offset. On right, you see what he looked like last week coming out of the All-Star break. Okay, this is the first time out of the All-Star break, what Corey alluded to. First trait, batting stance, open. That front foot, not as inverted. The posture, more upright, more loose. We're not seeing video here, but he's wagging a little bit. He's got the bat waggle going on. You don't see that come off the screen, but he just looks more loose and he's more upright. And the bat stance, the depth, is more so resting on the shoulder, and you can see that even in the hands being parallel with his jaw. And ever since that happened over the past week, you saw more power start to emerge. And it's not just power and home runs, it's that he's pulling the ball more. And that's actually corresponding to his ability to not just pull the ball more, but he's launching the ball more. So this is his actual bat path. Anything that's over the dotted line means that swing from Shaw over his last 5 swings on average is more steep, more launch angle-ish than your average MLB hitter. Now you're noticing, since the All-Star break, he's above the Major League average. This means his bat path, the bat going through the zone, is at an attack angle that is actually more launch heavy. That's actually pretty significant to me. So going forward, the question is going to be, well, should the Cubs actually weigh this heavier than the previous multi-month struggle? Or should they go out and really shore up that third base depth by getting someone like Eugenio Suarez? At the same time, the question I want to pose to you, Corey, if there's limitations and who the Cubs can trade from their farm system, of course you want to, win the World Series and go all out, but there is a finite limit. Are you okay using some of those prospects for pitching, or would you rather use some of those top end prospects? And I'm not saying that's what Suarez is going to cost, but so don't get that twisted, okay? But he is worth a compensation pick. Suarez is. There's multiple teams who need a third baseman. The Yankees, the Brewers. I understand in years past, the price for a rental player has not been that high, but this is still a little bit of a newer environment, which to me, there's more unknowns. And the fact that you have someone having a compensation pick, having one of the best offensive productions for any third baseman in the league, not just third baseman, overall hitters, it does change how we interpret the potential return. And if the Cubs need innings, even if it's not like trading Casey, which is not going to cost, likely not going to cost Casey for Suarez.
It will definitely not.
Of course, right? Yeah. But you just never know for sure. But it's likely not going to cost Casey. But it may cost someone like a James Triantos. Now, James Triantos might be used in another deal to get back more pitching depth. From your perspective, are you willing to sacrifice a little bit of pitching depth, just a little bit, to get someone like Suarez, or are you okay undeniably shoring up that pitching depth, but the sacrifice is you proceed with Matt Shaw as your daily third baseman?
I would go pitching.
You would go pitching.
Yeah.
Right.
They need the pitching. And look, like there's other options. Like I mentioned Willie Castro with the Twins. He's only, on a 1-year deal, free agent in 2026. So you get obviously a little bit of control there. Has played several positions in 2025 alone. He's played second base, left field, right field, third base. So there's other options. Maybe he's certainly not someone who is going to come over. He's not hitting 2 homers a game. He doesn't have 36 home runs or whatever it is like Suarez, but would be solid depth. And I would be fine doing something like that. Shore up the bench a little bit. I think it was really telling some of the stuff that happened, like in the KC series, that, like Brujan wasn't getting certain opportunities. John Birdie is basically a pitcher now. Like Justin Turner has gone over league average against left-handed pitching. So I'm saying if you can make him, instead of being your best bench guy, make him your worst bench guy, right? And he's playing that one role, I think that would be fine. It's a big gamble to ride with Matt Shaw, but I think like someone with Castro, at least you'd be bringing someone over who you feel like can play if Shaw starts to struggle again, and you can massage those matchups.
Whatever happens in the trade deadline, whether it is Suarez, whether it is getting pitching depth, let me tell you, I want someone like Castro. If Castro is the name, I'm thinking worst case scenario. I already saw it over the weekend or over the early week with KC. You had one injury to PCA. Well, the outfield looks shaky. You have Seiya Suzuki playing center field. I saw it with Tucker in the last game. Like shit. Like now right field's a little bit shaky.
Now Seiya has to remember how to catch fly balls. Yeah.
Right. And now I'm thinking, what happens if there's more durability issues? I'm knocking on wood, right? But you're thinking worst case scenario. If there's an injury to shortstop, well, Nico goes to shortstop. Then you got to avoid a second base. Do you want to give innings to Birdie? Do you want to give innings to Brujan? Probably not. Well, then who's going to play third base, right? So because you have Shaw going to second base, can you even play Shaw second base daily with the offensive struggles? So to me, getting someone like Castro answers 2 questions, or 2 needs. It's actually a more projectable bat, maybe that you play more often, but 2, it's an insurance policy. If someone does go down, even in the outfield, well, you don't have maybe Seiya playing center field. You can actually use Castro.
Well, and again, to our friend Gary in the chat, he says Willie Castro is Ben Zobrist. That's Ben Zobrist, a much better hitter, but I know what you mean. And
also, World Series MVP, but okay.
Yes. But you think about the value that Zobrist provided. Obviously, he was an excellent player, but how valuable was it that depending on which young Cubs star for Joe Madden was playing out of their minds that day, you just go, oh, Javi's playing second today. Okay, Zobrist can play left. He could play right. He could play center. Probably whatever you want, he'll do it.
He can
probably do it just fine, right? And that's extremely valuable. And having that versatility and being able to move someone around and still want them in the lineup, it's valuable. So if the only concern I have is they can't let Suarez go to Milwaukee. That's the thing. So just something to think about. You have to keep other people away from him too, but that's not a reason to make a trade necessarily.
It's funny, and trust me, I share it too. I want all of them, but there's a lot of fans who are like, "Well, I want Suarez, Castro, Gallen, and Joe Ryan. I want all 4." Like,
sure,
so do I. I don't know if they have the prospects to do all those deals. That's why I'm trying to
Yankees
understand.
keep losing, do you think they would trade Aaron Judge?
Oh my gosh, well, he's an expensive contract. Do you think they'll throw us some money for that?
Yeah. You might be able to get Arson Judge at the trade deadline.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, look, my priority, if Jed has to make decisions, I have these, prospects, and I can make only a certain number of moves. I'm going pitching. That's going to be the most important thing. And that to me is the area where they are just, you're already seeing them break down is a harsh word, but you're just feeling them running on fumes. And you've gotten great performance out of these guys. And we say this a lot, and I feel like I've said this about Brad Keller specifically, you don't want to run these guys into the ground. You want to be able to look at what you've gotten out of Brad Keller and be like, this is awesome. How do we keep him healthy? How do we keep him fresh? And how do we supplement this so that we can continue getting the most out of him versus saying oh, we don't have other guys that we trust in high leverage. So Brad, you're up. Brad, get up again. Brad, you better get loose again. You're running. It's exactly what happened with Pomeranz and Flexen, right? You just start to see diminishing returns, and you ride them as long as you can, but depth and strengthening the bullpen and the starting rotation, it makes everybody better, and you're going to need it. You are going to continue having guys that run out of gas or their fastball isn't as effective as it was in the early months because they're pitching so much. These types of things, that's going to be the area. While I wish this lineup, just to finish, I wish this lineup were better, especially against left-handed pitching, when PCA and Michael Busch take a step back from their, otherwise performance. I trust this offense. This offense has been one of the best in the league. They go through slumps just like any other offense, but I would be fine with some depth moves to make the bench a little better, give Counsell some more offense-based options, not just defensive replacements, not just speed, but bats that he can utilize if it meant they really shored up the pitching.
Yeah.
That's going to be the best way for this team to stay atop this race and finish the job, is if they are better than they are now at figuring out how they're getting 27 outs on a daily basis.
Yeah. This is why I don't focus on trade hypotheticals, because we're never going to appease every single possibility. That's why I posed a question to you, broad scale. Yeah. If we have to make sacrifices, what in your mind is the most breakable aspect of this team? And I share exactly that with you. It is the pitching. Yeah. I'm not commending third base's value. Third base has been a disappointment despite the recent success that Shaw has shown in a week. Both can be true. For the Cubs to go into what hopefully is a first round bye, then the worst case scenario and what you can control is depth, right? We can't control whether or not, Suarez goes to a different team if you don't go out and trade for Suarez, right? But you can control if someone goes down in injury. Well, you have maybe Castro to back him up. And it's not even Castro. Maybe it's a different player we're not even talking about. I'm not going to entertain the other guys out there, but there's several other guys out there. I think and I feel that if the Cubs do not go and get Suarez, they will shore up that positional depth. It may not be in the form of an everyday third baseman.
Yes.
Hell, it may not even be someone that makes sense on the surface. You may ask, where is he even going to play? But they've done this with pitching. They did this with Colin Ray, where there wasn't an obvious role, but it naturally folded into a role. And with Craig Counsell having the experience and him being a paranoid manager, maybe among the most paranoid in the league, that to me just makes the most sense. Yeah. If I were to project what's the most likely outcome. I think they go in, they don't make a massive splash for like a shiny player. I don't think they're going to maybe go out and get Suarez. I don't think they're going to go out and maybe get a Joe Ryan, right? I think they're going to go out and they're going to be creative, as Jed said. I think they may take some gambles for long term that may not be 2025 immediate, but they're going to do so in the context of shoring up depth for pitching, and they're shoring up depth for the positional unit. And then you go into the playoffs, hopefully, you play your chances right. You have a first round bye, and then you get through the first round with Shota, with Boyd, with your trio of Seiya, PCA, and Tucker, and let the randomness of baseball play itself out in a good way. And that seems to be how the Cubs have operated from day one with Jed Hoyer.
Yeah. To me, and look, like I'm looking at Michael's dream trade deadline, Edward Cabrera, Seth Lugo, and Eugenio Suarez. Listen, it would cost the entire
I love that
system,
too.
probably,
sign me up.
But you'd feel great about it.
Of course.
And again, I'm not opposed to it. That's crazy. That's Jed getting crazy, but go win a title. That's what I want. I said that last week. Like, that's what I'm in this for. So you're not going to hear me complain like, oh my God, they traded Owen Casey. Oh, they traded. I don't care. I want to win a title. I want them to fly another banner in center field. That's what I'm in this for, not future prospects. And prospects are a huge gamble anyway. But finishing it up, and then we'll get out of here. Like, the biggest need to me, and I think it's obvious, and the things you need to fix as quickly as you can within reason. It takes two to tango. That's the other thing. Like, when everybody's like, Jed's got to hurry up. It doesn't really work that way. Like, as if he was sitting on the potential to get Suarez a month ago, and he was like, like, it doesn't work.
More important things to do.
It takes two to tango, man. Like, the other team has to agree to the deal. They have to agree to a price. You need to figure out how to not have a bullpen day or Ben Brown or Jordan Wicks, whatever, pitching every fifth day. Somebody needs to be acquired to fill that spot. You would like to, as good as he's been, and for the value as good as he's been, use Colin Ray in more of a swingman role or a spot start role and not rely on him every fifth day, right? And you'd like to add to Council's ability to shut low-scoring games down. If you get 5 or 6 from one of your starters, you need to add to the group of, like I said, probably to me, Thielbar, if you've got lefties to deal with, Brad Keller, and Daniel Palencia, and add to that group, not just with guys that are solid or getting results or they're doing okay or they have a blow up every now and again. Add to that group where Council is saying after 5 innings, this game is over. It is 2-1. I know exactly where those 12 outs are coming from. And almost every night, I'm going to get them from these 2 to 4 guys. Maybe, 5 is a little aggressive, but like, get to the point where he knows exactly where those outs are coming from. And that would be my priority. If you can do that, then if you want to take the swing at third base, if you want to take that offensive shot, go for it. But those things are the pressing issues. No more bullpen games, no more Ben Brown. Put Colin Ray and utilize him in a less burdensome role and strengthen that bullpen so that when you have low scoring games, they're done.
Did you used to work in a front office, Corey? That was a very polished front office way of going about it. But that's what I've been trying to communicate.
That's why I still work for one, is my brilliant ideas.
But like the entire, 80 minutes, I'm trying to find the words to describe what you just said. And I used the word luxury, where you figure out your holes, plug those up, and then you add luxury items in Sandy Alcantara. You add luxury to maybe, I'm not calling it, but those are the necessities with shoring up the depth. Suarez at third base, right? If you fix those and you use your resources to undeniably make sure that there's no holes going forward, then you can start adding on that way. And I think if you were to really push me and ask me, well, what does the front office think? I genuinely believe they are thinking exactly the same way, because that is how they've operated for the last 5 years. That is what they've been telling us over the past year, as how they've communicated in the press the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. But hey, like Michael said in the chat, like, go do it all, just build this team that doesn't give up runs. And as they've talked about for years, what do the best teams do, Brendan?
They blow teams out, Corey.
They blow teams out.
That's right.
So if you can do it all, wonderful. And then you don't need those back into the bullpen guys, because you win every game.
I mean, that's my
or something like that.
You know?
Okay. I think
sorry,
that's what
Sarah.
we have. Yeah. Sorry, Sarah, but appreciate everybody joining us, sticking with us in the chat. I believe, CHGO Cubs will have trade deadline coverage, special coverage. We'll do emergency pods if we need to, if there are moves, big moves, things like that. But strap in, folks. Things are very, very interesting. The Cubs have been one of the best teams in baseball. But for now, I believe they still have the best record. I don't know where I think the Tigers have been losing. The best team is ahead of them in their own division, and they play them starting next week.
Oh my gosh.
As Pat Hughes would say, fasten those seatbelts, folks. This is what we live for, Brendan. We've dealt with years of non-competitiveness, falling out. Are they buying? Are they selling at the trade deadline? All of that garbage, a rebuild, a not a rebuild, etc. This is what you live for. It's going to be tense, but it's a lot more fun than being out of it and selling at the deadline. This Cubs team has been one of the best in baseball, and now they have the chance to get better at the deadline, and then they have a chance to prove that they are the best team in the National League Central. I, for one, believe Jed Hoyer is going to get it done and make this team better, and I believe that the Chicago Cubs are going to prove that they are the best team in the National League Central and win this division.
Man.
But it all starts in the next week, the next phase of this season. So fasten those seatbelts. CHGO Cubs will be with you all the way. We'll have trade deadline coverage next week. Brendan and I will be back with you at the same time next week, as I believe the Cubs are off again. We will talk to you at 8 Central. We appreciate you joining us. We appreciate your support. And as always, go Cubs.
We all silly like the mayor.